from that point forward, really weird stuff, like stuff started getting more and more weird in my life. And I would be going to sleep and I'd be like, just like laying there, eyes open, and I would just see a face come towards me. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's a face. Like I can see a person's face, I can see their eyes. And then I would, like 5 minutes, and I'm like, this is scary. Okay, go. And it would just go away.
All right. Lindsey.
Yeah.
Lindsey, you are a death doula, you call yourself?
I'm a death doula, yes.
Explain what a death doula is, please.
A death doula is someone that supports the dying and their families through the most significant transition of their life. Yeah, and there's many different things that a death doula can do. Some of them are sitting bedside with the person as they're dying, and down to just logistical things, helping people kind of sort out their affairs.
How did you first get into this?
Oh, man. I feel like it's a calling. I feel like it's something that just, you're just moved to kind of move into death work. And I started off with volunteering in hospice. I was going to a spiritualist church and they were offering a intro to hospice. And I was like, yeah, I really want to do that. I don't know. It's like kind of, like a morbid thing, I guess, being around death and dying. And it used to really scare me. But then once I started working as a medium, I feel like it was kind of like a natural progression into death work.
Is being a medium and being a death doula connected? They must be.
They're not connected. I don't like utilize mediumship when I'm working as a death doula, I would say. But I think that being a medium helped me to get over my fears of death and dying. Yeah. And I was around it constantly. I was speaking to people who were deceased already. So I'm like, well, they were all right. They're doing pretty well on the other side. So I guess it can't be that bad. Yeah.
What kind of people will contact you about doing this? All
different. I actually also work in integrative oncology. So with
you get
cancer.
A lot of people there.
Yeah. And so I would say it's usually word of mouth, to be honest with you. It's not something I am promoting online or pushing for. I think they just kind of, someone knows someone or they recommend you, and that kind of works out that way. But there's all different aspects.
Is it almost like being a therapist for somebody who's losing their life?
Sort of. I'm not really a therapist, but what I do essentially is just sit with people and, hear their stories and like what you do.
I'm not a therapist either.
Yeah. I just, I guess hold space. And holding space used to really give me the ick. Like whenever people said it, hold space, I didn't really understand what it meant. But I think it's just about being with people, having empathy, being with people in their pain without taking it on. And I became quite skilled at doing that. So, without, people could talk to you very openly and honestly about things, whereas with their family, they had to protect them or they had to mask and be a certain way. So I just think helping people to feel seen and understood, that was a big one.
Sure. What are some of the most memorable people you've helped pass away?
I think the most memorable, to be honest, was before I was really a death doula. It was the moment that I knew that moment was very significant in my future and what I would be doing. I had a friend whose brother had overdosed on heroin, and he was in a coma, and there was essentially no brain activity. There was no chance of him. He was unconscious for I think about 30 minutes or so. And so family had made the decision to take him off life support, but it was supposed to be at the end of a weekend. So I was actually working on a film project, and we were having a big snowstorm that weekend, and I was like, okay, great. snowstorm, I have no kids, I'm gonna like lock myself in my house and, you know, finish this film project. And as soon as I sit down, the brother texts me and he's like, I need you to come pick me up and be my designated driver and like take me out to the bar. I can't sit in my house right now. Like, I'm like, okay. So go over there, pick him up, take him to the bar.
Soft White Underbelly is about giving people a space to tell their stories, even when these stories challenge what we think we know. Ground News shows us different perspectives in the media, which is why Ground News is a perfect sponsor for my channel. In a world where algorithms censor much of the information we receive, some of the most important stories get missed from our news feeds. Ground News highlights local news from around the world, giving you an on-the-ground perspective that national coverage might miss. The app and website empowers you to form your own opinions by presenting you with every article published on any news story worldwide. My favorite part of the app is the data it gives you on each news source as you read it, such as where it leans on the political spectrum, a factuality rating indicating how subjective their printed reporting tends to be, and who funds it. I particularly like their blind spot feed, dedicated to showing you news stories that are underrepresented in the mainstream media. You can check this all out by scanning the QR code on screen or clicking the link below. It's easy to forget how much bias can shape the reality we live in. And in a world where our attention is constantly being fought over, my Vantage plan easily helps me keep up with more important stories slipping through the cracks. So I encourage you to check them out at ground.news/SWU. Subscribe through my link or download the mobile app and enter promo code SWU to save 40% off their Vantage plan. And by subscribing or even gifting it to someone you know, you're helping hold the media accountable and helping my channel directly. Thank you for watching.
5 minutes after we get there, he gets a phone call and runs out of the bar, and he comes back in and he was like, we have to go. My brother's heart rate keeps dropping. They can't keep him, they need to take him off life support now. And my parents left their car at the hospital, so you need to drive. So I don't really know him very well. Like, we had worked together. We were friends for a couple of months. I've never met his parents. And here I am now driving in a snowstorm, picking up his parents to take them to the hospital to take their son off life support. And I, like, internally was just like, holy shit, something just came over me, this like feeling of peace and just like totally like, okay, this is what's happening right now. So we get to the hospital. I'm like, okay, see ya. He's like, come in. I'm like, oh, okay. So suddenly I'm in this room, with the brother and his parents and his brother in the bed. And I'm just watching this, witnessing this scene unfold. And I didn't really do anything but just sit and observe and hold space, I think that was the moment where I was like, oh, is this what this is? It's just being with people in this moment. And I was watching as his, blood pressure is dropping and they start to, take the machine out and stuff. It does take time for the body to actually die. And I had this feeling that like his brother wasn't in his body, that he was like next to me or something. Like, it was very, I wasn't a medium at this point, by the way, or I didn't know that I was. So I was just sitting and watching, and then the mother gets like a warm blanket, and I'm just watching her tuck his legs in, and it just brought up so much, and I realized I didn't have to do anything but just be there, and just witnessing that love and the pain and all of it, and just what, like, the most powerful thing I've ever seen.
Do you feel like you handle death differently or maybe better, for lack of a better word, than others do?
I would say, yeah. I think now I can say that, at that time I just, knowing that was just like really significant and this super sacred thing, this energy that was in the room, it was just incredible. And then after, yeah, I think I knew that was a big part of it. And then since then, now, witnessing hundreds of deaths and being with, so many different families through that process, before, during, after, I feel, yeah, it definitely is different, but every death is different, Every family is different. How each person approaches their own end of life is different and unique. So,
and most of these people are conscious and they know they're passing away, or is some of them kind of out of it and you're helping the families more?
It's both. Sometimes it can be that they're very, conscious initially when I first meet them or work with them. Sometimes, like I was working in volunteering really in hospice and respite care for nuns. So one of them that I connected with, I became very close with, and I was working with her doing essentially hands-on healing sessions for 6 months. And the healing when someone is dying is not to make them not die. It's really just to help them to feel more comfortable and relaxed. So
we're all going to die.
Yeah, we're all dying. I'm dying right now. So yeah, it's really interesting. It's interesting work. I don't know how else to explain it. And I think it's really cool to see now. There's so many, the death trade, if you will. It's like younger and younger people are doing it now and becoming death doulas and bringing these conversations about death and dying back into practice. We live in a pretty death-phobic culture, especially in America, but I think globally as well. It's in other countries, their death practices are totally different, and it's more involved. People are more, there's community, example, and people take care of people before they die. Here, it's like, someone gets old, you're in a home, or we have medically managed death. People are dying in hospitals. Hospice is super underutilized in this country. So it's just really cool to watch people becoming more aware of death, their own death, talking about it, being interested in it. Yeah, and I think that it's something that is going to affect all of us, grief, and caregivers. There are people that are younger and younger also becoming caregivers for their loved ones. So,
what kind of things will you talk about with the person who is passing? Do you talk about their regrets and their lives?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes it's about their regrets, their lives, but a lot of times people just have a lot of joy and they feel this sense of completion and acceptance.
Sure. If they've lived a full life.
A full life, yeah. And I think that's a really special place to be. So if they want to talk to me about chess, then they can talk about that. Maybe they want to talk about boats. Sometimes you're reading a book to them. It could be so many different things. So it's just really, people fascinate me. And I think in their dying, it's some of the most special conversations that you can have with people.
Do they talk about their regrets specifically?
Sometimes. I would say if they do, they'll talk about things with me that they won't speak about in front of their family. Secrets. Things that, if they do talk about regrets, it's more just to be make sure you do this, make sure, kind of give advice. So, which is really cool. And a lot of people will ask what my feelings are, what my beliefs are, and I feel in that space, it's my role to really just kind of reflect it back to them. What do you think is, what do you think about that? How do you feel about that? So it's really cool though. Cool conversation.
Have your views on death changed since you started doing this?
Completely. Yeah. I definitely was very afraid of death, and I felt like most people, it's all about the extension of life, no matter what. And now, every day I'm take me, Lord, please get me off this planet. I'm ready. But I know that I have work to do. But yeah, I feel I'm not afraid of it anymore. I would not like to die really horribly. You know, I think that some deaths are probably a bit unpleasant, I imagine, or painful. You know, I don't know anyone that's like, yeah, I really want to have a painful death or fall off a cliff, or I don't know, you know, but I think it's definitely changed my perspective. And also the other thing that's really changed my perspective is as a hypnotherapist, I also work as a hypnotherapist, and I do past life regressions, and a huge part of that is taking people into past lives and like going through their death in those lifetimes. And so that kind of just having done it myself on the receiving end and going through so many of my own deaths, I realized where so many of my fears came from. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not going to die in a plane crash this time. Like I can relax every time I fly. Yeah, things like that.
And tell me about your work as a medium.
Yes.
How did you realize that you had this talent?
Oh, wow. So as a child, I think I was definitely a weirdo. My mom used to tell me that I was really quiet and would just kind of like look at people. She's like, when you were a baby, you would just stare at people and like you were like reading them. I remember as a really young child, probably, you know, a toddler, seeing things that weren't there, that other people couldn't see. I would just say to my mom, like, who's that woman over there? And she would just get scared. She's like, don't say that. I had a lot of things like that happen where I felt like I kind of questioned, am I crazy? Like, or, you know, I couldn't understand why I could see things, but they couldn't see them. So I think naturally children are quite open in that way, clairvoyant, or can see and feel things. If you notice babies kind of like looking around at things. And so, yeah, just feeling a little bit different as a child. And then when I got to my teenage years, it was quite difficult. I had a lot of anxiety. I think it came through anxious feelings and depression, and not understanding that I was feeling and sensing things in the environment that maybe other people were not as sensitive to. So yeah, I shut it down for a bit and had to completely like block it out. I also had a grandmother that was constantly telling me that mediums were the devil. So there was that sort of reckoning that was going on internally. I was like, oh, maybe there is something wrong. But I was always really naturally drawn to watching mediums. I don't know if you remember Sylvia Brown. It was like Montel had her. I was so fascinated by her. I was like, what is that? A medium? I had no idea. So it took a really long time, actually. I would, you know, see things or feel things, and I worked as a bartender for 18 years as well. And I would just know things about people, or, you know, they would sit down, and as they were talking to me, it was like this other conversation was going on internally, and I would just know so many things about them. And then I'd just be like, oh, like this? And they're just like, yeah, how did you know that? Or I would just get images and pictures and feelings. And so essentially I was reading everyone that sat at the bar. I didn't recognize what I was doing though. And then maybe 2013, I had my sister's boyfriend was killed really tragically. And she booked a thing to go to a medium. And the day of, she didn't have a ride, whatever it was. I ended up driving her there and going to this thing. And it was like a 15-year-old girl in Lyndhurst, New Jersey. And I was just like, I'm going to sit in the car. All of these really pivotal moments in my life, I just want to stay in my fucking car. And so my sister's like, come in. So
who is a 15-year-old girl?
The medium was a 15-year-old girl. Yeah.
That's what I thought you said.
Yeah. So we went after school, you know, her parents are there. I'm like, hi. We go into this back room. She lights a candle. And then as soon as she opens her mouth, it was like she was 3,000 years old. And I was just like, is this really happening? And it was incredible. Like, I never had a reading before. I didn't even know what they did. My grandfather came through. It was just really, everything she said was really spot on. And then at the end of it, you know, so she finishes up the reading and she blows the candle out and she goes, oh, by the way, do you know what you were in your past life? And my sister kind of looks at me like, what? And I'm like, no, I didn't even really believe in past lives at that point. I was like, no. She's like, oh, you're a witch in Salem. And so was I. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, no, it's a good thing. She's like, you're a medium. She's like, but you're just at the start of your spiritual awakening in this life. And I'm like, there's like a part of me in my ego, and I'm like, what does she mean I'm at the start? Like I've been doing all this work and, Tibetan Buddhism for 15 years and I'm at the fucking start of it. Like, but I was just like, oh, okay. Had no idea what to do with that information. And I kind of rejected it. I was just like, this is so weird, And then from that point forward, really weird stuff, like stuff started getting more and more weird in my life. And I would be going to sleep and I'd be like, just like laying there, eyes open, and I would just see a face come towards me. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's a face, like I can see a person's face, I can see their eyes. And then I would like 5 minutes, and I'm like, this is scary. Okay, go. And it would just go away. And so I went through a period where I was really like questioning my sanity. I'm like, am I losing my mind? I teach mediumship now for years, and I always tell people, I'm like, listen, there's a very fine line between mediumship and psychosis. And we're like hovering that line. You really have to know yourself. You really have to be grounded, I think, in this reality, because when you talk about it, when you explain it to people, like, it's insane. If I went to a doctor and I was like, yeah, so I'm hearing voices in my head and I'm seeing faces and, I'm having, they would think that you are either schizophrenic or, you're having auditory hallucinations, visual hallucinations. So I think I started to recognize like a lot of things about myself through that process of really resisting mediumship. And then it was like I was being forced to open up, I guess. I really didn't want it. It wasn't something that, again, I thought was real. I questioned everything. I definitely came from looking at things as like in a scientific way. I don't know. That was my brain. I was always overanalyzing things.
And when you're working as a medium, you are getting info on, like you're seeing things that they don't see, or tell me what you're doing.
Yeah. So it's kind of like how we have our physical senses, seeing, hearing, feeling, touch, smells, everything. You also have psychic senses. So they call them the clairs. So clairvoyance, clairaudience, claircognizance, clairsentience, feeling. So in the beginning, I really didn't think I was a medium because I felt like I couldn't see spirit like I used to as a kid. And then what started happening was, I think everything just sort of came in at once. It started to open up together. So initially I felt like I would just feel things or just know things about people. And then through those years, when things started to really open up, I started to hear things. I would hear voices, and primarily when mediums are talking about seeing spirit or describing someone, they're seeing it in their mind's eye. So it's kind of like if I tell you to imagine your kitchen, what does your kitchen look like? And of course, you can probably close your eyes or keep your eyes open and imagine what your kitchen looks like. Like, yeah, the color of the floor, the walls. It's the same way with mediumship. It's very much subjective most of the time, primarily. So when I'm seeing things, it's very subtle. It's not like as vivid as most people imagine it would be. The way that mediums describe things and talk about them, it sounds like, oh my gosh, they're describing this person perfectly. But it's quite subtle. It's actually pretty frustrating. I remember in the start of my journey, I was like, okay, like just show yourself to me. Like I want to just see you. It make things so much easier again. And my guides were like, absolutely not. It's going to freak you out. So slowly, I think that objective clairvoyance or the objective seeing where I actually see them like I used to see them, that does happen. It's very rare though. The same with the objective, hearing, like it actually sounds like there's a voice in the room, versus the subjective clairaudience is when it's like a voice inside of your own head. I don't know if this is making any sense, but it makes sense to me.
Are you always able to read things as a medium? Or are there some people that are just too difficult to get through to? Or?
Has ever like not worked? I mean, there's always spirit around. Like, it's just that I've learned to I'm like walking around closed, all the time, unless I'm actually doing a reading. And I think that was like the key for me to understanding what was going on. And once I learned how to open up and how to link with spirit, it was so much easier. Life became so much better because I was able to actually like intentionally close down and not be constantly, reading everyone, reading the person at the coffee shop, reading this, it was just like, I could just shut that off.
As a child, it must have been tough.
Yeah, it really was. I had a insane childhood, to put it mildly.
Tell me about your childhood. It's got to be interesting, given that your career is now.
It was colorful.
What it is.
It was chaos. It was feral. Both my parents are heroin addicts, and I was, born into that situation. My mom got off of heroin. She had a really fucked up life, my mother. And so I think with me, having me, she was forced to give up her firstborn for adoption, my brother, when she was 16. And I think that really destroyed her. And as a result of that, she started using heroin at 16. And then she met my father, who was also an addict. It was kind of like the perfect storm. So then they get married, and she just really wanted, I think she probably craved normalcy. She wanted family. She wanted her own, family unit. And I come busting into the scene. And my mom was so overprotective with me. Like, I've heard that she wouldn't let people touch me. I had like 100 blankets wrapped around me. Like, she was like insanely overprotective. And I think we had a pretty good bond from what I understand. Like, my mom is a really nurturing person. I think we're pretty tight. My mom, as overprotective as she was, I know she was doing the best that she could. And then my dad's addiction kind of got worse. He was doing heroin, smoking crack. I mean, he would go on these benders for like weeks at a time. My earliest memory of my father, my very first one, I was, I think, maybe 2 years old. I was in a car seat, and we were driving throughout the night to different motels. My mom was looking for his body. And that was like my earliest memory of him. And so I think like picking up on my mother's anxiety and stuff like this, just observing all of that. One time he came back to the house. He had been out for, I don't know, like 9-day crack and heroin bender or something. And he came back to the house at like 5 or 6 in the morning. And I think that he hit my mother. My mother was threatening to call the police. And he was hiding behind me in the corner, like in fetal position, saying like, the police, your mom's having the police, these bad men are gonna take me away. They're gonna take your father away. And so like, I just remember standing there and like kind of freezing and not knowing what to do, but knowing that my father was like behind me, hiding behind me when the police got there. So that was good start. And my dad, bless him, I mean, he really struggled. I think he went to like 50 different rehabs. He eventually my parents got divorced when I was around 5. My grandparents sent us on a Disney cruise, like as like this is like the divorce present or something. Like, let's send them away on a cruise together for one last family thing. And my sister came along when I was like 2.5. So she doesn't probably remember a lot of this stuff, but I think I remembered enough of it. And we went on the cruise. My mom got up in the middle of like 3 or 4 in the morning, and she's like, you and your father are gone. So I panic. I was in the fucking casino with him playing slot machines because we were in international waters, So I had a pretty interesting childhood. After that, my mom ended up in a relationship with a woman for most of my life, probably from around, 6 or 7 until they broke up when I was 18 or something. They were both, addicts. My mom became a pretty bad alcoholic after, and she just really struggled with her mental health. I just watched her depressed every day of my life. She would be like face down in her bed, like, you know, upset about something, worrying about money. She just really was really mentally ill and had no healthy coping mechanisms or tools in the toolkit. My grandmother, her mother, who was super religious, you know, clearly had an issue with her being in a relationship with a woman, so they rarely spoke. And then her solution was just to force me to go to church with her on Sundays. I think I got kicked out of Sunday school because I would like say things like I didn't believe that Muslims were going to hell, or I just had a hard time with religion in general. And yeah, so then we were homeless when I was around 7 for a bit. And I think my mom applied for social services or something, and they put us in some motel right near the George Washington Bridge. And my mom, it was just like so gross. You know, it was like one of those like day rate places. Like, she just wouldn't even want to stay in there, but we had to pretend that we were there so she could get in this program, get Section 8 essentially. And I think she just totally checked out, you know, and became quite emotionally abusive towards me, especially as I started approaching my teen years. When I was 13, I was sexually assaulted by a friend's stepfather, and that was going on for a bit. And then as a result of that, I ended up leaving school at 13, 14. I didn't go to school for 2 years. I was just kind of like left to my own devices and working, selling drugs, doing drugs, hanging out with much older kids, and, you know, just being a mess. Eating acid every weekend, you know.
Do you feel like the trauma that you went through as a child heightened your ability to be tuned into these things?
Yes.
You weren't born with it.
I think I was born like with this sensitivity, or with, you know,
Combination of both.
Yeah, it's a combination of both. I mean, I think that trauma definitely cracks something open in you. It can. And I was in therapy from age 5, so I like.
Yeah, it can definitely activate it.
Yeah, I think it can, and oftentimes it will open things up for people after they have some kind of seriously tragic, you know, impactful thing in their life, or loss, often as well. And so, yeah, I think that definitely, it helped me to be with people, because nothing that anyone says to me can shock me, really. I'm just like, okay.
You heard it all.
I've heard it all. I've seen it all. And, you know, I think that the important thing is that we can never really truly understand what someone's pain is or what they're going through, but just to be able to sit with them while they're in pain and, you know, and be in that place with them is pretty significant. So.
And back to the doula work that you do, what kind of things are you learning from people as they're dying?
So many things that I learn from people. It's about, yeah, it's like their perspective, their mindset, where their head is at. Not just with you know, even when working with cancer patients as well, because I mean, I think that's for many people the first time they're really like looking at their own life, facing mortality, like what does it mean to them? It really puts things into perspective, and I think that I stopped giving a shit about things that didn't really matter anymore. I stopped caring like what people thought. I didn't care about things that I used to find really important, you know, like social media. I'm like, whatever. Like, I just, you know, I feel like it, in some ways, it kind of, I don't want to say aged me, but it's wisdom, really. It's their wisdom. And it's kind of like you just get these like essential oil, you know, nuggets in there. And you're just like, wow. So I just feel really blessed to be able to be in that space.
Yeah, just spending time with people that have seen that much.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wisens you.
For sure. Yeah. and yeah, that combined with like massive trauma and like just life experience. When I talk to people, they're like, wow, you've lived like 1 year is like 100 years for you. You've lived so many different lives and you've done so many different things. And I really have. And it's pretty cool. I feel like I've been in some pretty cool places and done some amazing things. But I think that all of my experiences, all of the pain, all of, everything in my childhood, which, by the way, I just want to put this out there. Like, my parents are still alive and I love them very much. I have like a pretty great relationship considering that they're still addicts, and I just started to love them as people. So all of those things, and not having an expectation like, oh yeah, they're my parents, so they have to be this, like, they have to give me what I need. Like, no, we're all just fucking winging it. I have 3 kids, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Every day I'm like, I don't, but actually there are 3 people, they're human beings that are just like, they're really cool people. And I think that having kids young and not being well equipped with like good role models or people that were there, I had no support system. It was just kind of interesting, I ended up like having a lot of compassion for my parents as a result of that, I think. And all of those unique experiences and painful moments and trauma and stuff, it just gives you like a really incredible emotional palette to kind of draw from when you're working with people, and to create understanding and empathy and clarity, So I realized like a big theme in my life is just chaos to clarity. Chaos to clarity. I feel like I'm constantly living, there's always something totally chaotic going on in my life. There's a lot going on around me with people I know. I'm doing many different things, and I'm just kind of sitting there in the center of this, feeling pretty grounded, actually. I think that my connection with death, working as a medium, I feel that it just made my faith unshakable. I do believe in God. I believe in one God. And that connection, that really is what changed my life, was like starting to understand that, the God of my understanding. So, but yeah, there was like a big reckoning that kind of had to happen for all of that to fall into place in the way that it did. I was being dragged down the path of mediumship and healing and spirituality. I was so averse to all of it. I was just really like, cults are weird, and I'm in the spiritual world. I own a spiritual healing business. I, work as a medium, a death doula. I do hypnotherapy. I do hands-on healing. I host retreats, sound healing, all of it, right? I'm so immersed in that world, but I hate it at the same time because it's just so much spiritual bypassing, and there's just so many people that are, I don't know, like toxic positivity. There's so many problems in the spiritual world.
Really?
Yeah. Like, I'm kind of this paradox, but I call it out. And I think that, you're not going to put a crystal on your fucking forehead and just like be awake. Do you know what I mean? Like, it takes grit. It takes work, actually. And it's messy and it's uncomfortable, and like learning about yourself and what makes you do the fucked up things that you do. Why do I do those things? So I was constantly like holding myself over this fire of like, why am I doing that? Or like, really holding myself accountable. And through that process, of my own bringing clarity through that chaos, I think that I was able to finally have something I could really offer people, which is, creating spaces where they feel seen and understood. And it's like such a simple thing, actually, to do that. I think that you do that quite well. That's what, creates intimacy. That's what helps people to feel loved. And there's like, people go through their whole lives without ever experiencing that from anyone, from their partners, from, their parents, from wherever in the world. And then like, they book a fucking session with you. And in like 30 minutes, they feel completely like you're just like looking into their soul. And it's such a healing thing. That one thing, just the listening, just the silence, is healing for people. So essentially that's what I do. And you don't really need to have like, I don't know, like there's all these stupid things that people think they need to say in grief. And it's like, what do you say? Well, just like shut up and just like listen to them, you know? So I'm doing way more talking than I normally would.
You're talking instead of listening.
Yeah.
I'm doing listening now.
Yeah, which is interesting. But
do you feel like death is the end of our lives, or we go on to live other lives, or things that, you know?
I believe, and you know, a big part of my work is the extension or continuity of life after death. I think we have a physical death, but I do believe in a soul that...
Do you communicate with the dead? Mm-hmm. You do?
Yeah, that's basically what mediumship is. When I'm doing like a psychic reading, a psychic reading is soul-to-soul communication. So it'll be like my soul blending with yours, and we're having a little conversation in my head, which sounds really crazy. And then mediumship is also soul-to-soul communication. So it's my soul connecting with the soul of someone who just happens to not be in a physical body. So it really works in the same way using those psychic senses. So every single time I do a reading, it's a little bit different. Some people, they're communicating. It's a lot of visual things. Some people are talking directly to me. It's usually a combo of everything. It really depends on the person, the spirit communicator's personality. Like, you know, some people are like, blah, 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 blah. They want to talk, or some, you know, sometimes they're very visual in the way they communicate. So it's different every day. And I think you asked me earlier, but I didn't answer you directly. Like, has it ever not worked? No, I mean, like I have days where you know, I have my own personal shit going on, and I've had to, like, maybe like twice I've been like, I need to reschedule you, because I just knew that it wasn't going to work, you know. If I ever did a reading where it just wasn't working, like I have integrity, like, you know, and discernment first and foremost. I would never just like make shit up, you know. Sometimes it's a bit like AOL dial-up connection, and other days we're on Fios, you know. I got like the 5G, you know, I'm flying. It really depends. So it's pretty cool though. I mean, I think that nervousness and anxiety I used to get before doing readings, for like 5 years, I was just like, you know, having like, because I wanted to do well. I wanted to, you know, and at the end of the reading, I don't really give a shit about someone going and leaving me a Google review or like, you know, 5 stars on Yelp. Like, I really don't care, actually. I want them to have a great experience. I want to give them my best every time. But what matters to me most, what I started to really keep my focus on, is spirit, and having like very spirit-centered readings and sort of giving them the mic, so to speak. And so the best thing for me is after a reading when I can feel that love and appreciation coming from them. Like, you know, like, thank you. There's that feeling of just, you know, kind of like God give me the high five. I'm like, yeah, okay, I feel good about that, you know. And I do believe that it is a gift from God. I know that like a lot of religions kind of teach that this is like something you shouldn't do, and it's evil or it's dark. I mean, there's nothing about it. Like, everyone is a medium, actually. So people are like, what do you know, if you have a soul, then you're also a medium. My personal belief and understanding that I have, for example, like Jesus, they talk about him going around and doing healing. And I mean, he was a medium. And he was connecting to God. He had a direct connection to God, like a mystic. So, and that's essentially what I do. So I would say now, it took me a long time, like to actually name what it is that I do. And I started to, I was told like, oh, you're a mystic. And I was like, oh, like, I just thought that mystics are these like, I don't know, like Teresa of Avila or Rumi. Like, I'm not, like, what is that? I had to like Google it. And I was like, oh, a mystic is someone who has a direct connection to God. And I was like, yeah, I do that. And I can hear God talking to me. And I'm like, I know how crazy that sounds, but I just sort of was just like, yeah, well, that is what I do. And essentially that is my work now, is teaching people to have that direct connection to God and to spirit. And And it's really healing. I look at it as like another healing modality, mediumship.
Given all your interesting experiences and dealings with death and all the things that you've seen and heard, what have you learned that we can all hopefully use in our lives?
Wow. All of it. I mean,
Are there things that we need to pay attention to that we're not paying attention to, or vice versa?
yeah, we're living in some pretty crazy times right now. I think, being called to come into our humanity and care for people. And it's just about, it really truly is about loving people. Ram Dass used to say, treat everyone you meet like God in drag. And I really try to embrace that like everywhere, and connecting with people. And I'm just like, wow. Yeah. And you can see these aspects of the divine, I think, in everyone. And it's really a beautiful thing. And so, yeah, just being of service, loving people, don't be a fucking asshole, you know what I mean? And don't be upset about things that really, they aren't going to matter when you're dead. And people get so caught up in money, status, material things, and it's just kind of like none of that really matters at the end. And the connections that we have with people, the relationships we have are super important. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts
Thank
on
you.
and your experiences on being a doula and a medium.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, Lindsey, thank you so much.
Thanks.
When I was designing the first Soft White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.